Hey everyone, before we dive into this incredible story, please hit that subscribe button to join our channel for more inspiring tales like this one. Your support keeps these stories coming. I stood in the corner of the grand ballroom, my mop still dripping from the morning's work. The chandeliers sparkled above, casting light on the polished marble floors I'd spent hours scrubbing. Tonight, the elite gathered here, their laughter echoing off the walls. I was invisible to them, just a cleaner in a faded uniform. The billionaire, Mr. Harrington, strode in, his presence commanding the room. He glanced my way, his lips curling into a smirk. "She cleans floors, not dance floors," he said loudly, and the crowd chuckled. My cheeks burned, but I kept my head down, gripping the mop tighter. I'd heard worse, but the sting never faded. His words hung in the air, sharp and dismissive. I focused on the rhythm of my work, trying to block them out. The music started, a soft waltz filling the space. I moved to the shadows, hoping to disappear. But then I saw his son, Ethan, watching me from across the room. Ethan was different from his father, quieter, with eyes that seemed to see more than surfaces. I'd caught him looking at me before, but never like this, with such intensity. The ballroom swirled with dancers, their gowns and tuxedos a blur of color. I stayed in my corner, my hands rough from years of cleaning. Mr. Harrington's voice boomed again, mocking me to another guest. "She's part of the scenery," he laughed, and my heart sank lower. I wanted to vanish, to be anywhere but here. But Ethan's gaze held me in place, steady and unwavering. The music shifted to a livelier tune, and the crowd clapped along. I busied myself with a spot on the floor, pretending not to hear. Ethan started walking toward me, his steps deliberate. My pulse quickened. What could he want? I braced myself for another jab, another humiliation. But his face was kind, not cruel. He stopped a few feet away, his eyes locked on mine. "May I have this dance?" Ethan asked, his voice soft but clear over the music. I froze, certain I'd misheard him. The room didn't stop, but it felt like it had. My mop slipped slightly in my grip, water pooling at my feet. I don't dance," I stammered, my voice barely a whisper. He smiled, not mocking, but warm, like he saw something I didn't. "Everyone dances," he said, extending his hand. I glanced at Mr. Harrington, who was now watching, his smirk fading. The crowd's chatter quieted, eyes turning toward us. I wanted to run, to hide from their stares. But Ethan's hand stayed steady, waiting. My heart pounded as I set the mop against the wall. I took his hand, my calloused fingers trembling in his. The music swelled, and he led me to the center of the floor. All I could think was, I don't belong here. The first step was clumsy, my boots squeaking on the polished marble. Ethan didn't flinch, he guided me gently, his hand firm on my waist. The crowd murmured, some in shock, others in amusement. Mr. Harrington's face was a mask of disbelief, his eyes narrowing. I felt exposed, like a spotlight was burning through me. But Ethan's calm voice pulled me back. "Just follow me," he said, and I tried to focus on his steps. The waltz was unfamiliar, but his confidence steadied me. I caught glimpses of faces, some sneered, others stared in curiosity. My uniform felt heavy, a reminder of my place. Yet Ethan moved with me as if I were one of them, not an outsider. The music seemed to wrap around us, softening the edges of the room. I dared to look up, meeting his eyes again. For a moment, I wasn't just the cleaner. I was someone who could dance. The song ended, but Ethan didn't let go. The crowd was silent, waiting for what came next. I expected laughter, maybe even boos, but none came. Mr. Harrington stepped forward, his face red with anger. "This is absurd," he spat, glaring at Ethan. "She's not one of us." The words cut, but Ethan's grip tightened slightly, grounding me. "She's here, isn't she?" he replied, his voice steady but firm. A murmur rippled through the crowd, some nodding, others whispering. I felt like I was floating, caught between fear and something new. Hope, maybe. Ethan turned to me, ignoring his father. "You did great," he whispered, and I almost believed him. The tension in the room was thick, but no one moved. Then, a single pair of hands began to clap. It was a young woman in a silver gown, smiling at us. Another pair of hands joined, then another, until the room filled with applause. I stood there, stunned, my heart racing. Mr. Harrington's face twisted, but he said nothing, his power shaken. Ethan's smile grew, and he gave my hand a gentle squeeze. "See? They loved it," he said, and I couldn't help but smile back. The crowd's approval felt like a shield, protecting me from the billionaire's scorn. I glanced at my mop, still leaning against the wall, forgotten. For the first time, I didn't feel invisible. The music started again, and Ethan led me into another dance. This time, my steps were surer, less hesitant. The room no longer felt like a cage but a stage. People watched, some with warmth, others with envy. I didn't care. I was dancing, and it felt like freedom. The billionaire's laughter had faded, replaced by something stronger. As we moved, I noticed the other cleaners watching from the edges, their eyes wide. They'd seen me mocked, seen me shrink, but now they saw me dance. One of them, Maria, gave me a small nod, her face beaming with pride. I felt a surge of courage, like I was dancing for them too. Ethan's hand was steady, guiding me through each turn. The crowd's applause had shifted the room's energy, and even Mr. Harrington stayed silent. I caught his eye briefly. He looked smaller now, less untouchable. The music flowed, and I let myself get lost in it. My boots didn't belong on a dance floor, but they moved anyway. Ethan leaned in, his voice low. "You're a natural," he said, and I laughed, surprising myself. For once, I wasn't just surviving the night. I was living it. The second song ended, and Ethan bowed slightly, a playful gesture that made me blush. The crowd clapped again, louder this time, and I felt their energy lift me. I wasn't sure what had just happened, but I knew it mattered. Mr. Harrington turned away, his shoulders stiff, retreating to a group of his peers. I expected to feel relief, but instead, I felt bold. Ethan walked me back to my corner, his hand still in mine. "You changed the room tonight," he said quietly. I didn't know how to respond. Words felt too small for this moment. The other cleaners were whispering now, their faces lit with excitement. I picked up my mop, but it felt different, lighter somehow. The night wasn't over, but I wasn't the same. I'd stepped out of the shadows, and I wasn't going back. Ethan smiled one last time before returning to the crowd. I resumed my work, but the mop felt foreign in my hands, like it belonged to someone else. The crowd had moved on, dancing and laughing as if nothing had changed. But for me, everything had. I kept catching glances from guests, some curious, some kind. Maria sidled up to me, her eyes shining. "You showed them," she whispered, and I grinned, my heart full. The billionaire's words still echoed in my mind, but they had no weight anymore. I glanced at Ethan, now talking with a group of young men. He caught my eye and winked, a small gesture that felt like a secret between us. The music played on, and I worked to its rhythm. I wasn't invisible anymore, not to myself or to them. The ballroom felt less like a fortress and more like a place I could claim. I straightened my back, mopping with a new kind of pride. As the night wound down, the guests began to leave, their voices fading into the night. I stayed behind, cleaning up the remnants of their celebration. The chandeliers dimmed, but the memory of the dance kept the room bright. Ethan had left with his father, but not before giving me a nod that felt like a promise. I didn't know what it meant, but it gave me hope. Maria and the other cleaners gathered their things, still buzzing about what had happened. "You're a legend now," Maria teased, and I laughed, shaking my head. But deep down, I felt it, a spark of something new. I'd been seen, not as a cleaner, but as a person. The billionaire's laughter had tried to define me, but Ethan's applause had set me free. I finished my work, the mop gliding easily now. The room was quiet, but it hummed with possibility. The next morning, I returned to the ballroom, the events of last night still vivid in my mind. The floors gleamed under the morning light, a testament to my work. I wondered if anyone else remembered what had happened. The other cleaners greeted me with smiles, their chatter filled with excitement. "They're still talking about you," Maria said, nudging me. I blushed, unsure how to handle the attention. My hands moved automatically, mopping as I replayed Ethan's words. "You changed the room," he'd said, and I wanted to believe it. The mansion felt different today, less oppressive. I caught myself humming the waltz from last night. A supervisor passed by, giving me an odd look, but said nothing. I wondered if Mr. Harrington would retaliate for my moment in the spotlight. But for now, I focused on the rhythm of my work. The memory of the dance kept me steady. At lunch, the cleaners crowded around me, asking for every detail of the night. I told them about Ethan's hand, the music, the applause, and they hung on every word. Maria laughed, saying I should teach her to dance next. For the first time, I felt like I belonged among them, not just as a coworker but as a friend. The story of the dance was spreading, whispered through the staff. Even the cooks had heard, giving me nods as I passed the kitchen. I wondered what Ethan was doing now, if he was thinking about last night. The billionaire's face flashed in my mind, his anger a sharp contrast to Ethan's kindness. I pushed the thought away, focusing on my friend's laughter. The day felt lighter, like the weight of invisibility had lifted. I finished my shift with a smile, something rare for me. The mansion wasn't just a workplace anymore. It was where I'd found my courage. That evening, I overheard two supervisors talking about the gala. They mentioned Ethan, how he defied his father in front of everyone. "Bold move," one said, and the other nodded, impressed. I kept my head down, pretending to clean, but my heart raced. Ethan's actions weren't just kind, they were rebellious. I wondered what it meant for him, standing up to a man like Mr. Harrington. The supervisors moved on, and I was left with my thoughts. The mop in my hands felt like an extension of me now, not a chain. I pictured Ethan's smile, the way he'd made me feel seen. The mansion's halls were quiet, but they buzzed with the aftermath of last night. I felt a strange pride, not just for myself but for Ethan too. He'd risked something, and I wasn't sure why. But I was grateful. I finished my work, the waltz still humming in my head. Days passed, and the story of the dance became a quiet legend among the staff. Guests from the gala had started asking about the cleaner who danced. I was embarrassed but secretly thrilled. My routine hadn't changed. Mop, scrub, repeat, but I carried myself differently. Maria and the others teased me, calling me the ballroom queen. I laughed it off, but their words warmed me. I hadn't seen Ethan since that night, and I wondered if I ever would. Mr. Harrington was around, his presence still heavy, but he avoided me. I caught him staring once, his eyes cold but uncertain. The power dynamic had shifted, just a little. I started noticing small things, a guest smiling at me, a supervisor speaking Kinder. The mansion felt less like a cage and more like a place I could navigate. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was claiming my space. One afternoon, a letter arrived for me at the staff entrance, sealed with wax. My hands shook as I opened it, the paper crisp and expensive. It was from Ethan, written in neat, careful script. I haven't stopped thinking about that night. It read, "You were extraordinary." My heart skipped, and I read it again, disbelieving. He wanted to meet, to talk, away from the mansion's eyes. I tucked the letter into my pocket, my mind racing. What did this mean? Was it pity, or something more? I thought of Mr. Harrington's sneer, his power over us all. Meeting Ethan felt risky, but I couldn't say no. I wrote back, my handwriting shaky, agreeing to meet at a cafe in town. The rest of my shift was a blur, my thoughts on him. The dance had changed more than the room, it had changed me. At the cafe, Ethan was already there, sitting in a corner booth, unassuming in jeans. He stood when he saw me, his smile as warm as that night. I felt out of place, still in my work clothes, but he didn't seem to care. "I'm glad you came," he said, and we sat, the air between us easy. He asked about my life, my dreams, things no one ever cared to know. I told him about my late mother, my love for music, my quiet hopes. He listened, really listened, his eyes never leaving mine. I asked about him, and he spoke of his strained relationship with his father. "He thinks money defines people," Ethan said, his voice low. "But you showed him it doesn't." I blushed, unsure how to respond. The cafe hummed around us, but we were in our own world. For the first time, I felt like I could be more than a cleaner. We met again the next week, and the week after that, stealing moments outside the mansion. Each time, I felt bolder, more myself. Ethan shared stories of his travels, his love for art, his dreams of breaking free from his father's shadow. I told him about my childhood, how I'd once dreamed of being a musician. He didn't laugh or judge. He encouraged me to sing, to try again. I started humming in the mansion's halls, my voice soft but growing. The other cleaners noticed, their smiles wider now. Even Mr. Harrington's presence didn't shrink me anymore. I caught him watching me once, his expression unreadable. Ethan's belief in me was a shield, stronger than any insult. I began to dream again, not just of survival but of something bigger. The dance had been the start, but this was the journey. One evening, Ethan showed up at the staff entrance, his face lit with excitement. He had a gift, a small, second-hand guitar, it's wood-worn but warm. "I thought you might like to try," he said, handing it to me. My hands trembled as I took it, tears pricking my eyes. I hadn't held an instrument in years, not since my mother passed. The other cleaners gathered, their chatter stopping as they saw the guitar. Maria hugged me, whispering, "You're gonna shine." I strummed a chord, the sound shaky but alive. Ethan sat with me, patient as I fumbled through notes. The mansion's cold walls seemed to soften, the music filling the space. I sang a few lines, my voice raw but real. The cleaners clapped, their faces glowing. Even a passing supervisor paused, nodding in approval. I felt like I was dancing again, but this time with my voice. Word of my singing spread, and soon, the staff asked me to perform at their weekly gathering. I was nervous, my hands sweaty as I held the guitar. Ethan was there, sitting in the back, his smile steadying me. I sang a song my mother taught me, simple but full of heart. The room was quiet, then erupted in applause, louder than the galas. Maria cried, hugging me tight, and the others joined in. I felt like I was floating, my voice carrying me somewhere new. Ethan walked me home that night, the guitar slung over my shoulder. "You're unstoppable," he said, and I believed him. The mansion, once a place of shame, was now where I found my strength. Mr. Harrington's words couldn't touch me anymore. I was more than a cleaner, I was a singer, a dreamer, a person. The next gala was announced, and the staff buzzed with excitement, but I felt a knot in my stomach. Would Mr. Harrington try to humiliate me again? Ethan found me during my shift, his eyes bright with an idea. "Sing at the gala," he said, as if it were simple. I laughed, thinking he was joking, but he was serious. "You belong on that stage," he insisted. I shook my head, fear creeping in. Singing for the staff was one thing, the elite were another. But Ethan's belief in me was relentless, and I started to consider it. Maria and the others overheard, already planning my outfit. I practiced in secret, my voice growing stronger each night. The guitar felt like an extension of me now, not just a gift. The gala loomed, but so did my courage. I wasn't just the cleaner anymore. I was ready to claim the spotlight. The night of the gala arrived, and I stood backstage, my heart pounding in my chest. Maria had helped me find a simple dress, borrowed from a friend, and it felt foreign but right. The guitar hung over my shoulder, its weight grounding me. Ethan was in the crowd, his presence a quiet anchor. The ballroom was packed, the elite in their finest, their laughter filling the air. I heard Mr. Harrington's voice, commanding as always, but I didn't shrink. The stage manager called my name, and I stepped forward, my boots replaced by borrowed heels. The spotlight hit me, and for a moment I froze. Then I saw Ethan's nod, and I strummed the first chord. My voice came, soft at first, then stronger. The crowd quieted, their eyes on me, not mocking but curious. I sang my mother's song, pouring my heart into every note. The room felt alive, vibrating with my music. As I sang, I saw faces soften, some guests swaying, others closing their eyes. Mr. Harrington stood near the front, his arms crossed, his face unreadable. I didn't care. I was singing for me, for Ethan, for the cleaners watching backstage. My voice carried, steady and clear, filling the ballroom. I transitioned to a second song, one I'd written in secret about the dance. The lyrics were raw, about rising from the shadows, about defying expectations. The crowd leaned in, drawn to the story in my words. Ethan's eyes shone, his smile wide and proud. I felt like I was flying, untethered from the mop, from the past. The final note hung in the air, and the room was silent for a heartbeat. Then applause erupted, louder than before, shaking the chandeliers. I stood there, breathless, alive. I bowed, my hands trembling, and stepped off the stage, the applause still ringing. Ethan was waiting, pulling me into a hug that felt like home. "You were incredible," he whispered, and I laughed, tears in my eyes. The cleaners rushed over, Maria leading the charge, their cheers louder than the guests. Even some elite approached, offering compliments, their voices genuine. Mr. Harrington stayed back, his face a mix of anger and defeat. I didn't need his approval anymore. I had mine. The stage manager asked if I'd perform again, and I nodded, still dazed. The night felt like a dream, but it was real. I'd claimed the ballroom, not with a mop but with my voice. Ethan took my hand, leading me back to the crowd. For the first time, I felt like I belonged there. The music started again, and we danced. The days after the gala were a whirlwind. Guests sent notes, asking about my music, my story. The staff treated me like a hero, and Maria joked about being my manager. Ethan and I grew closer, meeting often, talking about everything and nothing. He spoke of starting a foundation, one that gave people like me a chance to shine. I started writing more songs, my guitar always close. The mansion was no longer just a workplace, it was where I'd found my voice. Mr. Harrington avoided me, his power diminished in my eyes. I heard whispers he was rethinking his ways, but I didn't care. I was focused on my future, not his past. My shifts felt lighter, my steps surer. I sang as I worked, and the other cleaners joined in. The mansion hummed with new energy, and I was part of it. Ethan invited me to a small music venue in town, where local artists performed. He'd arranged for me to take the stage, just for one song. I was terrified but said yes, my guitar my only armor. The crowd was small, intimate, nothing like the gala's grandeur. I sang my song about the dance, and they listened, their applause warm and real. Ethan was there, clapping loudest, his pride infectious. Afterward, a local producer approached, asking if I'd record a demo. I looked at Ethan, who nodded, his eyes saying, "You can do this." I said yes, my voice steady despite my nerves. The cleaners celebrated when I told them, Maria already planning a listening party. My life was shifting, each note building a new path. I wasn't just a cleaner anymore, I was a musician. Thanks for joining me in this story. If you loved it, please subscribe to our channel for more tales of triumph and heart. Your support means the world.